Suicide is the second leading killer of people in the college-age population. It may not be easy, but talking about suicide and mental health could save a life. From the Marquette Wire, this is the Breaking the Silence Town Hall Forum. Here is your host, Hannah Kirby.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. This evening, we're going to break the silence and have a conversation about the S word, suicide. We're going to hear personal stories from a couple of very brave individuals. We're going to learn the roles depression and anxiety can play, and we're also going to find out how every single one of you can help save lives. I'd like to start the evening off by introducing you all to two very strong individuals. This is Claire Schuster, a mother whose son Tim died by suicide in 2008. And this is Marie Crow, a Marquette sophomore who contemplated ending her own life. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. To start off, Claire, could you share your son Tim's story with us?
This is our son, Timothy John. He's our youngest son. And he was a senior at Grafton High School. And December of 2008, he took his life. I came home from a hair appointment and found him floating in our hot tub. And completely a shock to all of us. He, in hindsight, he did show classic signs of depression. We did get him help his last 2 months or 1 month before he passed. And it was my mission then to speak up, because as our community felt, and all of his close friends since K4 and his teachers, all his friends, parents, coaches, they all thought, holy crap, if it could happen in our family, in their family, it could happen to anybody. He didn't fit the stereotype. He didn't just break up with his girlfriend. He wasn't bullied. He wasn't struggling with his sexual orientation. He wasn't giving possessions away. He didn't talk about dying. He didn't attempt before, not that we're aware of. He just helped me decorate the Christmas tree the night before. He loved Christmas. We just got him a new puppy 11 days before. And he left us a note that said, "I'll love you all forever." And again, it's our mission to speak up, because Tim felt alone. He felt like everybody else was having a wonderful, perfect life.
Having a depression episode and then multiple anxiety attacks. And the one person that I had as my support and counted on just didn't want to be there for me at the time. So I decided to go for a walk and try to distract myself, because I also struggle with self-harm every once in a while. So on that walk, I found myself above a bridge in my hometown. And that's when I was contemplating taking my life. And I'm very lucky that my dad called me at that time. So he came and picked me up, and then I was surrounded by a few friends, but at the time I still felt alone, and I think that's what a major theme is, that you feel alone. So then a week or so later, I was having the episodes again, and then I did not have my support there again, and that's when I did have the same urges, and seeing how that affected my dad and my family the first time is when I really decided that I needed to get help. So that's when I actually checked myself into a mental hospital for a few days. And then after I got out, I learned how to take care of myself and how to be there for myself. And I believe that's something that we all need to do. So that's why I decided that I would share my story. So I started a blog. I started different ways to express myself. So I just really want to help those around me, because no one's actually alone, and everybody is always there for you. And even though it may seem like you're alone and that it sucks right now, you'll be okay, and just wait it out a little, because it's not the end, and you can keep going.
Suicide claims about 800,000 lives a year.
That is mind-boggling and very, very sad.
Yeah. And both our podcast and the World Health Organization say, by talking, by needing to vocalize your experience, by reaching out and connecting with another person, by asking for help, that really is the first step.
It is the first huge step, just talking about it, and that's what we're trying to do here, is normalize depression and all of the things that relate to it.
Terry Mcguire and her sister Bridget are best friends. Together, they host a podcast, Terry in studio and her sister via Skype.
We are literally giving voice to something that has not been talked about and has been sort of kept in the shadows. And we're hoping that by hearing it, you just understand it better. And now we're learning that telling it has a therapeutic value as well, because you're pulling the curtain back on your own secret.
And so many share the same secret.
Bill, Reed, Catherine, these are all people who reached out to us asking if we would interview them.
In hope of helping others.
And today we will talk with Medi Spees.
I fought really hard to get to a place where I came out on the other side. I could see that beauty on the other side of depression and grief of losing a loved one to suicide.
The podcast is posted on their website, iTunes, and SoundCloud, but it all starts right here in the studio.
In terms of actually, waking up in the morning and going, let's do this, it wasn't there. Now it is, and that's a really nice thing. It's if this is my last job, I'm glad I picked one that is having an impact.
From Splice Media Marketing, I'm Cheyenne Fisher for MUTV News.
I am now joined by Terry Mcguire, one of the women you just saw in the video who's giving voice to depression, and Dr. Barbara Moser, the chair of Prevent Suicide Greater Milwaukee. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight to talk about depression and anxiety.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So since we just watched the video about you, Terry, let's learn a little bit more about giving voice to depression. How did that idea come about?
Both my sister and I have depression. We have lost family members and friends to suicide, and we were talking about the things that we could do at this stage in our lives in terms of both of us wanting to start a new project and a new, not just a career, but to make a difference instead of just make a living. And we realized that this was something we knew about and something we could help to bring voice to. And with the opportunity to be in different parts of the country and have access to different people in different age groups, she has younger children, I have older children, so we had access to some of their friends through social media. And we sort of just gave it a shot, and it was very different than we expected. Thinking it would be pulling teeth ended up being opening a dam.
Dr. Moser, why is the college population so at risk?
Well, the college population is leaving home often for the first time, leaving their family, friends, and they are having to organize their lives and really make decisions, perhaps on their own, that they have not had to make before regarding what classes to take, how to balance time, who their friends are, how much alcohol to drink, whether to use other substances. So there's lots of different factors that lead to a lot of angst and wondering, what should I do? Am I doing the right thing? Self-doubt. And so that does make college students vulnerable to anxiety and depression.
Hi, thanks for your insight, ladies. So when we were talking about coping mechanisms, neither of you mentioned medication, which I thought was interesting because, as you said, there's no difference. If you had a headache, you would take, some Advil. So what are your thoughts? Why do you think there's this approach avoidance with taking medication? I have a couple friends who are clearly, they have depression and they don't want to take antidepressants. They don't want to put something in their body that's unnatural or whatever, what they perceive as unnatural. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when I think about coping mechanisms, I guess I'm thinking about what a person can do for themselves. And so a medication would require, seeing somebody and getting a prescription. Medications can be hugely helpful in treating depression and anxiety. I I too live with depression, have been on antidepressants for many, many years. They've helped me tremendously.
This is Tidal Waves. Don't blame me for my fear of drowning when nearly 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Drinking the doctor-recommended 64 fluid ounces of water daily, I am drowning myself from the inside, slowly killing myself in the name of fear. My insides are churned by seasickness-inducing currents, pushed and pulled by my own tropical storms and tidal waves. I am not pristine waters. I am tsunamis and flash floods. Dropped pebbles do not send out even and photogenic ripples from my core. Instead, they land like metal tons and tombstones. I am not peaceful. I am irregular, unpredictable, moody, tragic, shaky, dramatic, unsteady. I am suffering, leaking, taking on water. I am breaking. I am a cargo ship destined to crash. A devastating shipwreck set on its fated course. I am meant to burn. I am meant to die. I am not the glamorous yacht coasting along the tropical spirits of the Bahamas. I am not a sailboat peacefully waiting on the still morning water, basking in natural glory. I am not you, them, him, her, whoever. I am suffering from my own sabotage. I have punched and kicked hole after hole into the bottom of my vessel. I can see that I am on my way to drowning, but I kind of want to be. I've tried flooding my anxiety, waterboarding my suicidal desires, and sinking my entire way of being, but I'm still breathing, still afraid. I'm still suffering, leaking, taking on water. I'm still the same. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Lovell, and I'm a registered QPR instructor with the QPR Institute and Prevent Suicide Greater Milwaukee. QPR stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. It's a suicide prevention training to help people learn how to ask the question of someone if they're thinking of killing themselves, how to persuade someone to live, and how to refer them to resources. If you or someone you know is struggling, please contact the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 to get help.
Now we're going to talk about intervention, warning signs, and what you can do to help save lives. We are very lucky to have these next three individuals join us this evening. Amy Lovell is the co-founder of RedGen, an organization that advocates for youth mental illness. And Dr. Michael Zabrowski has been the director of Marquette's Counseling Center since 2004 and is a licensed psychologist. And Peter Huffel is the executive director of the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Greater Milwaukee. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here tonight. Starting with Amy, could each of you give us one of the strategies you use when talking to someone about suicidal thoughts?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is to always use empathy and to be non-judgmental. Somebody who is in that deep, dark place is very vulnerable. And so to just be patient with them, empathetic and non-judgmental, and to sit with them and let them talk, but also not to be afraid to ask the question. Because it's really important to ask the question and to ask it in a non-negative way. So to ask directly, like, I can see you're really upset. Are you having thoughts of killing yourself? And not to ask, like, you're not thinking of killing yourself, are you? Because if you ask in that negative way, it's sending them the message that you're too scared for the answer or you want them to say no. So you have to give them time to be able to talk freely and to not be scared of getting a yes.
The saying goes, it runs in the family.
My dad is 6'6", my mom's 5'10", so I'm the shortest in my family at 5'9".
These aren't the only things that run in the Fisher family.
My mom and dad both play basketball at Marquette. My dad was a walk-on from New Jersey. My mom was top 10 in rebounding upon her graduation. I always say that my parents put like a basketball in my hand and Marquette in my heart.
Jenny carries on her parents' athletic legacies from the press box.
With Marquette Athletics, I'm a media relations assistant, meaning that I work at basically every home event.
But before Jenny got to Marquette, she suffered what she describes as a world-crushing tragedy.
When I was 13 years old, I lost my mom to suicide. I still have memories of playing basketball in the driveway with my parents. It was, we would do, my mom and I, the Brown Eyed Girls, against my dad and my older brother Charlie. I guess I just hope my story can help someone feel comfortable enough that they can break their own silence or know that someone cares enough for them to stick around.
Jenny, you're so open with your story. Why do you think it's important to share it?
I think it's important, first off, just because it's who I am. It would almost take away, I feel, from my mom's life itself. At the end of the day, a suicide is a death. And so to silence it just because of the means, I don't think is really fair.
And what was it like when you first opened up about your story?
It took a while. We're here, 7 years later, and I'm talking about it and nearly losing my voice. But the first time I think I really talked about it, it was hard. I didn't really want to wrap my head around it. When I was 13, I didn't know what was happening. I was barely going through puberty even. I didn't know what was happening at all in life. And so I think the first time talking to people about it really made me realize that, this is a valid thing to feel and to go through, and that I'm not alone.
A fictional character is making a lot of noise in the real world.
13 Reasons Why follows the story of a girl, high school student Hannah Baker, who eventually makes the decision to kill herself. And in the process, she leaves behind a series of 13 tapes that depict either a story or a person and how that event made her decide to end her life.
Andrew Doran is currently on episode 9. He believes the message is clear.
And really puts in a perspective that everything that you do or say to someone really does matter.
But others are concerned.
It's just not something that should be meant for entertainment.
Mary Paterkavich is a senior in the College of Arts and Sciences at Marquette. She has aspirations to work in counseling.
They almost made it seem like a counselor or something like that could be the end-all be-all of why someone does something.
Kate Stoles refuses to watch the show.
In September, I lost my sister to suicide.
She believes more could be done for prevention.
One of my biggest complaints with the show is that they're not doing anything for people who are having suicidal thoughts. So on the show, there's no suicide hotline at the end.
In the U.S., suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 15 to 24. Active Minds is a suicide prevention group at Marquette. Michelle Frederick believes that the show started a discussion that is normally difficult for people to have.
I will say even in really negative conversations I've had on mental health or in the media, what it did is it spurred a conversation and it said, okay, why did this make us uncomfortable? Why was this triggersome? And then you can talk through the problems.
From Milwaukee, I'm Brian Morrissey, MUTV News.
Suicide claims about 800,000 lives a year.
That is mind-boggling and very, very sad.
Yeah. And both our podcast and the World Health Organization say by talking, by needing to vocalize your experience, by reaching out and connecting with another person, by asking for help, that really is the first step.
It is the first huge step, just talking about it. And that's what we're trying to do here is normalize depression and all of the things that relate to it.
Terry Mcguire and her sister Bridget are best friends. Together, they host a podcast, Terry in studio and her sister via Skype.
We are literally giving voice to something that has not been talked about and has been sort of kept in the shadows. And we're hoping that by hearing it, you just understand it better. And now we're learning that telling it has a therapeutic value as well, because you're pulling the curtain back on your own secret.
And so many share the same secret.
Bill, Reed, Catherine, these are all people who reached out to us asking if we would interview them.
In hope of helping others.
And today we will talk with Medi Spees.
I fought really hard to get to a place where I came out on the other side. I could see that beauty on the other side of depression and grief, of losing a loved one to suicide.
The podcast is posted on their website, iTunes, and SoundCloud, but it all starts right here in the studio.
In terms of actually, waking up in the morning and going, let's do this, it wasn't there. Now it is, and that's a really nice thing. It's if this is my last job, I'm glad I picked one that is having an impact.
From Splice Media Marketing, I'm Cheyenne Fisher for MUTV News.
The saying goes, it runs in the family.
My dad is 6'6", my mom's 5'10", so I'm the shortest in my family at 5'9".
These aren't the only things that run in the Fisher family.
My mom and dad both played basketball at Marquette. My dad was a walk-on from New Jersey. My mom was top 10 in rebounding upon her graduation. I always say that my parents put like a basketball in my hand and Marquette in my heart.
Jenny carries on her parents' athletic legacies from the press box.
With Marquette Athletics, I'm a media relations assistant, meaning that I work at basically every home event.
But before Jenny got to Marquette, she suffered what she describes as a world-crushing tragedy.
When I was 13 years old, I lost my mom to suicide. I still have memories of playing basketball in the driveway with my parents. It was, we would do my mom and I, the Brown Egg Girls, against my dad and my older brother Charlie. I guess I just hope my story can help someone feel comfortable enough that they can break their own silence or know that someone cares enough for them to stick around.
From Marquette University, I'm Hannah Kirby, MUTV News.
When someone around you is showing signs of depression and mental illness, what do? 1 in 12 college students make a plan for suicide, according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Some groups on campus are working to drop those numbers and better prepare people to spot the warning signs. Camille Paul reports in our continuing series, Breaking the Silence.
I love that. Would you like to buy some hot chocolate for $2? You have a great day.
Last Wednesday, students from Alpha Phi Omega Serps fraternity offered hot chocolate for $2 under the Rayner Memorial Bridge. But it wasn't just to warm you up.
Right. It's for a great cause.
Although September is National Suicide Prevention Month, organizations like Alpha Phi Omega and Active Minds are partnering up with the Counseling Center for more events.
One of the good things about Marquette's campus is that there's so many different parties doing different things and having an impact.
Michelle Frederick, Active Minds president at Marquette University, knows the importance of knowing the signs and how close to home suicide can hit.
Yeah, so actually in high school I lost a friend to suicide. My grandma suffered with depression and didn't go through with committing suicide, but she had suicide ideations, so I kind of grew up with it around me. I actually just 2 weeks ago lost one of the girls in my sister's high school class to suicide, so I see the prevalency around me and I really wanted to make a difference.
So like you go through the training and then after it's like a more like, you know, like you just went through this really like...
Frederick is not the only student on campus to be affected by suicide.
I had a brother who committed suicide because at the time I didn't know he was feeling alone by himself. But so this is important to me because someone could be right next to you and you not know their struggles that they're going through. It's important to have this event on a college campus because a lot of the time we don't really recognize when someone is in distress.
For only $2, students can get a warm drink and possibly save someone's life.
Would you guys like to buy some hot chocolate to help prevent suicide? $2.
I'm Camille Paul reporting from Marquette University for MUTV.
And next week, we'll tell you about breakthrough research on identifying people who have suicidal thoughts.
There could be a breakthrough in suicide prevention.
And as Tara Schumel reports, it involves the study of brainwaves.
Since I think is the cortex separated? No, I don't think you still have more. Yeah.
A new way of studying patterns in the brain may now be able to identify those who have thoughts about suicide.
Well, it's a very interesting paper. I mean, functional magnetic resonance imaging, or the technique with which to look at activity in a living person and within the brain, has been around for quite a long time. What was different in this particular study was the way that they analyzed their data. They asked questions of 3 sets of individuals, people who had suicidal ideation, people who had actually acted on that at least one time, and also normal controls. And they could discern differences in brain activity patterns.
For Dr. Joyce Wahlberg and others, this breakthrough has some work to do before it can be used.
Here at Marquette, I mean, you know, what percentage of the student population is going to ever have a brain scan unless that becomes more commonly accessible, available? There's a lot of privacy issues.
Students want to deal with it more face-to-face kind of
talking to a psychiatrist or something rather than on an app.
The breakthrough will be able to come, or will come, when they're able to predict those who are and are not likely to actually act. We see mental illness as a physical phenomenon, and on that basis there's great hope that we can get to the bottom of the issue and create better clinical, physical, or chemical solutions.
In Milwaukee, I'm Tara Schummel, MarketWire News.
Available now at a news rack near you is a story that will break the silence.
So suicide is the second leading cause of death for people ages 15 to 24. So that's a statistic that hits home for us college students.
Between the glossy covers of the new Marquette Journal are carefully designed pages of student writing and photography. The cover story is the first in an ongoing series by the Marquette Wire to promote suicide awareness on campus.
The student on our cover is Marie Crow. She's a sophomore. She attempted suicide, and her story is she was considering jumping off of a bridge, and she sent a text right before she was going to do that. She meant to send the text to her boyfriend at the time, but she accidentally sent it to her dad, and her dad immediately called her and came to help her down from the ledge.
The project, which has been in the works since the fall, finally made its debut on Monday. It's time to talk about suicide.
Like A, why it happens, and B, how to keep people from trying to kill themselves and all of that.
So if you get a chance to scoop up a copy, don't forget to break the silence. In Johnston Hall, I'm Leah Harris, MUTV News.